Imagine just
Good.
heading out for a night, with your friends,
Yeah.
and then just like vanishing
Yeah.
into thin air.
It's terrifying.
It's a total nightmare. And that's what happened to Darlene Webb back in 1983.
Yeah, 1983 in Daytona Beach.
So tonight we're going to take deep dive into Darlene's story.
It's a cold case, and it's a really perplexing one.
Yeah, and heartbreaking for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What I think is so striking about this case is just how quickly things went from, ordinary to totally extraordinary.
Right.
I mean, it's Friday night in Daytona Beach. I know
Yeah.
it seems like a pretty, safe and familiar place.
Yeah.
Darlene, 20 years old, by all accounts, a very dependable person,
Yeah.
heads out with her friends to this local bar.
The Beachcomber.
The Beachcomber, yep. And then, somewhere between the laughs and the last call, she disappears.
It's crazy how life can just take these turns like that.
I know.
It's like 1 minute you're out and the next you're gone.
Whew.
So let's rewind a little
Yeah,
bit. Let's retrace her steps. What do we actually know about her last movements?
Well, we know that she was last seen leaving the Beachcomber bar
Okay.
around 1:30 in the morning.
Right.
And then her car was found just a block away
Okay.
near another bar called the Bavarian Beer Garden.
So the car was found, but she wasn't in it.
Kirk.
What about, her stuff? Was it still in the car?
Yes. Her purse, all of her belongings were still inside the car.
Yeah.
The doors were unlocked,
Okay.
but the keys were missing.
Interesting.
Yeah, and there's this other detail
Okay.
that's kind of small, but it really raised some red flags for investigators.
Okay. I'm all ears.
Okay, so they found cigarette butts
Oh.
in the ashtray of her car.
Okay.
And this is important because Darlene was a non-smoker,
Oh, wow.
and she was known for being super meticulous about her car.
Yeah, that's a big detail,
Right, so there's no way she would have let anyone smoke in her car.
let alone leave the butts.
Right, exactly.
I mean, that really does say a lot about her, and it makes you think that something was off right from the get-go.
Absolutely, and it's amazing how these little details can become
Yeah.
such crucial parts of these puzzles.
It's you would never think that that would be a thing.
And, back then, DNA analysis was really in its early stages.
Yeah.
But even then, those cigarette butts
Yeah.
could have had some really valuable evidence.
For sure.
Imagine if they had collected them and analyzed them.
Right.
We might have had a DNA profile of
Yeah.
someone who was in her car that night.
It's like one of those what ifs
Exactly.
that comes up in these cold cases so often.
All the time.
But it is interesting to think about how back then, even then, they had that ability
Yeah.
to look at DNA.
It makes you
Yeah.
think what else might have been overlooked
Oh, yeah.
or missed.
So we've got a young woman vanishes, no trace.
Right.
Her car is there, but she's not.
Yep.
Stuff's inside,
Yeah.
but there's evidence that someone else was with her.
Yeah.
What did the police do?
Right.
Did they think that something bad had happened right away?
Unfortunately, no. They didn't. It seems like they treated it as a missing person case.
Wow.
They were really hesitant to say that there was foul play.
I mean, I guess I could see why, considering, she's an adult,
Yeah.
but still with the cigarette butts.
I know it's a little strange, but you have to remember that back then, things were different.
Yeah.
It was a different time.
Totally.
There was a different perception of missing persons cases,
Okay.
especially when it was young adults involved.
Interesting.
It was almost like they had this right to disappear.
Yeah.
Like they could just start a new life without telling anyone.
Oh, wow.
So that attitude, coupled with the fact that there weren't any obvious signs
Right.
of a struggle or violence,
Yeah.
that probably contributed to why they didn't jump to foul play right away.
I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's a reminder of how much things have changed,
Right.
even in law enforcement.
Absolutely.
But even with that context, it's hard to imagine how frustrating it must have been for her family.
Oh,
Knowing that time is ticking away.
yeah. And the sources really highlight that.
Yeah.
How much they were pleading with the police
Yeah.
to really investigate this
Yeah.
because they knew Darlene wouldn't just vanish
Right. Exactly.
for no reason.
So while the police are, pursuing this missing persons angle,
Okay.
there's actually a potential witness out there
Yeah.
who could have, really changed the direction of the investigation
Right.
way sooner.
Right.
Tell me about the tip from the Bavarian Beer Garden.
Okay. So this is really important.
Okay.
The manager of this bar, the Bavarian Beer Garden,
Yeah.
which was right across the street from where Darlene's car was found,
Okay.
she reported hearing a woman scream
Oh, my gosh.
and then seeing a dark car speed away with its lights off
Oh, wow.
around the time that Darlene disappeared.
Okay.
And she even said that she had called the police about it.
She called the police
Twice.
twice.
Yeah.
So a speeding car right near where her car was found. Why wasn't this a bigger deal?
Right.
Did the police just dismiss it?
Well, that's where things get even more frustrating.
Oh.
It seems like her initial reports just kind of got lost
Oh, no.
in the system.
Wow.
Maybe because of miscommunication.
Yeah.
Or maybe they just didn't document it properly.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it wasn't until Darlene's disappearance was all over the news
Right.
that her information was really given to investigators.
It's crazy how something that crucial could just slip through the cracks.
Yeah, and it just shows how important clear communication is.
Yeah.
And documentation in these investigations.
Oh, for sure.
Especially when it could be an abduction.
So we've got a slow response from the police.
Yeah.
A huge tip that gets lost.
Right.
And a family that's desperate.
Absolutely.
Did anything else happen in those early days that could help figure out what happened?
Yes, actually, there was a potential sighting
Okay.
of Darlene weeks after she disappeared.
Weeks later.
Yeah, weeks later.
Wow. Okay.
So this lead, it was really a whirlwind of hope and then confusion.
Oh, no.
So this family comes forward saying that they had seen someone who looked just like Darlene
Oh, wow.
at an ice cream shop.
Okay.
And she was acting disoriented and asking for a ride.
Wow.
And she even introduced herself as Cheryl Darnesky.
Wait a minute. So there's a sighting, but with a different name.
Yeah.
Oh, this is getting complicated.
Yeah.
Did the police look into this, Cheryl Darnesky?
They did, and it led them on this really wild goose chase.
Okay.
They tracked down a woman named Cheryl Darnesky who had worked at a local radio station.
Huh?
But it turns out it wasn't the same woman.
Okay.
Then they found out about a woman named Darlene
Wait a minute.
who had stayed at a campground.
There's two Darlenes.
Well, there's a Darlene and a Cheryl.
Oh, my gosh. Okay.
So they followed that lead to the campground
Okay.
where this Darlene had stayed with a man and 2 kids.
So Cheryl at the radio station, Darlene at the campground.
Yeah, it was a lot of mistaken identity going on.
Like a soap opera.
It really is. So did they figure out if either of these women were actually Darlene?
Right.
Well, that's the thing. The sources I looked at don't really say. So it's kind of like this trail that just fades away.
Ugh, I hate that.
Yeah, they just had more questions than answers.
It's so frustrating to see these little glimmers of hope, and then it just goes nowhere.
It's like taking 1 step forward and then 2 steps back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So were there any other leads that the investigators could look into at this point?
Well, they went back to that tip from the Bavarian beer garden manager,
Okay.
the one who had heard the scream and seen that car speed off.
Right.
They wanted to see if they could get more details.
Okay.
So they had her go under hypnosis.
Hypnosis.
Yeah, hypnosis.
Wow, that's interesting. How often do they use hypnosis in these cases?
It's kind of controversial.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like mind reading or anything.
Right.
It's more about helping the witness relax and access memories
Yeah.
that might be buried under stress or trauma.
Okay, that makes sense.
But it doesn't always work. And, you know, some experts think it's helpful.
Right.
Others think it might not be accurate or could even create false memories.
Oh, wow.
So it's a delicate process.
Yeah, for sure. So what happened with the beer garden manager?
Well, she was able to remember some numbers,
Okay.
maybe part of a license plate.
Oh, wow.
But unfortunately, she gave 3 different versions of the numbers.
Oh, no.
So they couldn't really follow up on it.
That's so frustrating.
You're so close.
And then it's just not there.
It's like right there and then gone.
Ugh. So did anything else important happen in those early years of the investigation?
Well, about a year after Darlene disappeared, a street sweeper came forward
Okay.
with this really chilling story that actually kind of backed up what the manager had said.
Okay.
So he'd been working in the early morning
Right.
near the same spot where they found Darlene's car,
Okay.
and he said he saw a man forcing a woman into a car.
Oh, my gosh.
And the car he described sounded similar to what the manager had seen.
Wow. So we've got 2 separate people both saying they saw something like that
Exactly.
around the same time in the same place.
Yeah.
Did this convince the police that something bad had happened to her?
It seems like it.
Oh.
The sources say that this is when the investigator started to think that she had met with foul play.
Okay.
After all, everyone who knew her said she was responsible,
Right.
reliable, and had no reason to just run off.
Yeah. It's just a shame it took so long to reach that conclusion.
I know.
Those years must have been so agonizing for her family.
Absolutely, just clinging to hope, but with so much uncertainty.
But I mean, with this new account from the street sweeper,
Right.
it kind of gives the case a new sense of urgency.
Definitely.
So did they find anything new?
Unfortunately, no.
Really?
Even with all this evidence pointing to foul play, the case just stayed cold for years.
Wow.
It wasn't until 2006,
Okay.
over 20 years after Darlene vanished,
Wow.
that a new lead popped up.
Okay.
And this time, it connected her to a convicted serial killer in California.
A serial killer.
Yeah.
This is getting crazy.
Huh?
What made them think of that?
So the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department,
Okay.
they released these photos
Okay.
taken by a guy named William Bradford,
Okay.
who was convicted of murder,
Right.
and they thought he was a serial killer.
Oh, wow.
And they thought these photos were of some of his victims, and one of them looked a lot like Darlene.
A photo that looks like Darlene from a serial killer.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. So did this actually connect her to this Bradford guy?
Not really. While it gave them hope, there were some things that didn't add up.
Like what?
Well, they thought the photo was taken in Bradford's apartment in California, and there's no evidence that Darlene ever went to California.
So how would she end up in this guy's apartment thousands of miles away?
Right.
Did they think maybe she went to California and didn't tell anyone?
They looked into it,
Okay.
but it didn't seem likely.
Yeah.
She was close to her family and friends.
Huh.
It didn't make sense that she'd just go off like that.
Yeah. So what else did they think?
Well, maybe Bradford met her in Florida and took her to California.
Oh my gosh, that's terrifying.
Yeah.
So did this Bradford guy have any connection to Florida?
He did, actually.
Sure.
He lived there for a while in the early 80s.
Oh, wow.
And he was even accused of sexual assault during that time.
Oh, wow.
So it is possible that he met Darlene in Florida.
I mean, it's a long shot, but it's worth looking into.
Definitely.
So did they ever get to talk to Bradford about any of this?
Unfortunately, no.
Why not?
He died in prison in 2008
Oh, wow.
from cancer. He was on death row.
So any answers he might have had died with him?
Exactly. It must have been so devastating for Darlene's family.
Yeah, to be that close and
you know,
nothing.
It's like the mystery got even bigger.
So did they ever figure out if that woman in the photo was Darlene?
Even though they looked alike, they couldn't confirm it for sure.
Right.
They didn't have any DNA or dental records to compare,
Right.
so it was just a possibility.
It's just heartbreaking.
It really is.
All that hope and uncertainty.
Yeah.
And then,
And then nothing.
yeah. So did anything else happen after that?
Well, in 2009, Darlene's mother, Fran, found out something really shocking.
What's that?
She found out that Beth,
Darlene's friend.
Darlene's friend who was with her that night,
Yeah.
had never actually been interviewed by the police.
Wait a minute. She was the last person to see Darlene.
I know.
How is that even possible?
It's another one of those things in this case that just makes you shake your head.
It's unbelievable.
But thankfully, the detectives in 2009,
Right.
they tried to fix that mistake and finally talked to Beth.
26 years later.
26 years later.
Wow. So what did she have to say after all this time?
Well, she gave some interesting details.
Okay.
She confirmed that Darlene had said she needed to leave the bar early that night,
Okay.
but she couldn't remember why.
Okay.
And she also said that Darlene might have left her purse at their friend's apartment,
Okay.
which means she might not have gone back to her car at all.
Wow. So if she didn't go back to her car,
Exactly.
it changes everything.
It really does.
It opens up a whole new set of possibilities about what happened.
Exactly. It challenges everything they thought they knew.
Right.
And it shows why it's so important to look back at these cases,
Yeah.
even at things they thought were already settled.
So did Beth say anything else about what Darlene was thinking or feeling that night, or any problems she might have been having?
She did mention that Darlene was dating a few guys at the time,
Oh.
and that one of them had been acting really possessive.
Oh.
But the sources don't say if the investigators ever talked to any of these boyfriends.
Ugh. It's like another missed opportunity.
It really is.
I mean, if this guy was being possessive, he might know something.
Exactly. And it shows how important it is to look at every part of a missing person's life.
Right.
Their relationships, their routine, their conflicts.
Yeah.
Even the tiniest detail could be important.
It's amazing to me how many leads there were that seemed like they were never really followed up on.
I know, it's really strange.
So what happened after they talked to Beth? Did things start moving forward with the case?
You would think so, right? But no.
Really?
Unfortunately, even with this new information and some media coverage, Darlene's disappearance is still unsolved.
It just shows how tough these cold cases can be.
Yeah, they're really complex, and time can be a tricky thing.
Yeah.
It can be an enemy and an ally.
How could it be an ally?
Well, memories can fade over time,
Right.
but they can also come back in unexpected ways.
That's true.
And, relationships change, people's feelings change.
Yeah.
And someone who didn't want to talk before
Yeah.
might be ready now.
Yeah, especially if they get older.
Right. They might feel like they need to get things off their chest.
Wow. Yeah, guilt is a powerful thing.
It really is.
So maybe there's someone out there
It's possible.
who knows something even now after all these years.
Exactly.
They could finally solve this case.
And that's why it's so important to keep her story alive.
Right.
To remind people that even the smallest detail could be the missing piece.
It's true. And speaking of keeping her story alive, there's someone who's been really dedicated to finding justice for Darlene,
Oh, yeah.
even after he retired from the police department.
Right. Sergeant Jimmy Flint.
Tell me about him.
He's amazing.
Hmm.
Even though he's retired, he's still working on this case.
Go on.
He's
Yeah.
driven by this need to find the truth.
It's inspiring to see that kind of dedication after all this time.
It really is. It shows his character and how much he cares.
So what parts of the case is he most focused on?
He keeps going back to those cigarette butts.
Right.
He thinks that was a big missed opportunity.
Yeah.
They could have gotten DNA from them.
Yeah. It's another one of those what ifs.
I know.
But he's not just thinking about the past, right? He's still looking for new information.
Oh, absolutely. He's really interested in any details about that car that was seen speeding away.
Okay.
Like a better description, a partial license plate, anything that could help identify it.
That's true. Sometimes it's those little things that can break a case wide open.
Exactly. And he believes that someone out there knows something,
Right.
even if they don't realize it's important.
Yeah, it's never too late to do the right thing.
Exactly.
And Darlene's family has never given up hope either.
No, they haven't. They're amazing.
Their strength is incredible.
Yeah.
So tell me about Darlene's mother, Fran.
She's just incredible. You can tell how much she loves her daughter.
Yeah.
She's kept the porch light on at their house all these years.
Wow.
Just waiting for Darlene to come home.
Oh my gosh.
She even keeps Christmas presents under the tree every year.
That's heartbreaking, but also really beautiful.
It is. It's like a reminder of the life that was lost and the future that's still unknown.
And it shows how deeply these cases affect families.
Right.
The waiting, the wondering.
It never really goes away.
So after all these years and everything we've talked about,
Yeah.
Darlene's case is still unsolved.
It's a reminder that life is fragile and hope is powerful.
We've talked about the investigation, the missed chances, the leads that went nowhere.
And the people who refuse to give up on finding the truth.
This has been a real journey into the world of cold cases.
It shows how important it is to be thorough, to use science, to listen to witnesses, and to support the families.
Darlene's story shows us that even cold cases can be solved.
That's right.
Sometimes all it takes is one person with one piece of information.
Exactly.
So if you know anything about this case, please contact the authorities.
You never know, you could be the one to finally solve this.
You can find all that contact info in our show notes. And thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Darlene Webb's case,
We hope this helps keep her memory alive.
and maybe even bring some answers to her family.